What's going on, everyone? Hope you're having a beautiful end of the year. Actually, we're recording this episode in December, but we're taking a break at Paddle and Fin. So this episode is coming for you on the first week of January. So if you listened to this episode, I hope you had a great holiday vacations, holiday weekend, whatever you want to call it. If you had to work, I'm still hoping you got to get to the water and had some fun. Follow me on Instagram, Bass Kayak and Beers, Facebook, and Instagram, and tell me what your new resolutions are, how you spend the year, the end of the year, and if you have fun. Hopefully, everybody had fun and had a great time, and it's ready for, put those New Year's resolutions into effect. But anyway, super excited. We're gonna kick off the season with a great episode. I got one of my favorite, not only tournament anglers, but also content creators, somebody that I've for a long time, I really wanted to have come to the podcast as a special guest. And what a great time to have her in our podcast. One of the best tournament anglers, one of the best ambassadors we have in the kayak fishing community. And of course, I'm talking about the Grand Champion for the Hobie BOS, Kristine Fischer. She's going to be joining me this episode. I'm hoping you're going to like it. I know she's come on a lot of podcasts and a lot of shows, so it kind of only felt right to have this come out at the beginning of the season instead of towards the end. I kind of want to. It's both good for our special guests, where they have that coverage, not just in 1 week, but spread out through a couple of weeks or month. Give exposure, and also for you guys, if you listen to her podcast, probably get a new fresh take on a couple of things that we're going to be talking about that may have not been discussed on other podcasts and other shows. So anyways, before we go to commercials, obviously I want to thank oh my God, I forgot the word. My sponsor, Douglas. Go to douglasoutdoors.com. Check out their full their full lineup of LRS, X Matrix. You can tell I'm nervous for having Kristine Fischer. I'm all over the place. But anyways, go check out douglasoutdoors.com and their full lineup of LRS, X Matrix rods. Some of my favorite rods. They really do a great job in taking care of their pro staff, and I'm really honored to have them as my sponsor, and their product is amazing. So go check them out. We're going to go to a quick commercial, then we're going to have Kristine Fischer back on the show. So thank you again, everyone. Joy. All right, man, I fumbled through that, Kristine. You got me nervous.
Buster, Armando, come on now.
I was like, wow, I haven't been this nervous having a special guest since I can remember, since my first show, probably.
I'm flattered.
Now I'm flattered and honored to have you on the podcast. So thank you again. I know you've done so many episodes, so many, I don't know, how many podcasts have you done since you went to TOC? Like 40? Oh my God.
Over 40 in the last 3 weeks, which is, I took a hiatus from podcasts. I had to tell everybody no starting in January. I took a break all spring, all summer, all fall, just because I needed like some me time this year. Yeah. And so it was only right that I let everybody back in and just did a ton of podcasts for the next few weeks. So it was good timing.
No, and it's a balance, it's a delicate balance, because you benefit from the exposure and the community benefits that sports benefits. I don't know what's going on with my cap. Here we go. But at the same time, you have to keep your personal life, you have to have that special time, that me time. Tournament angler is, it feels like fun, but you have to travel a lot. You mentioned it on the YouTube channel that you posted an episode today. Actually, for those out there listening, this was posted on, December 7th, talking about the winnings on, and kind of like the cost and how you can make actually profitable to a certain degree life in tournament fishing and kayak for tournament fishing, which I thought it was a great episode. But there's a lot of hard work in between, like it's not just about winning tournaments. It's also about having the media and doing the podcast thing, the shows, plus editing and creating your own videos, which is not easy, of course. How have you managed it? I mean, when you look back at how your growth, both in the tournament and the social media, how has it been for you now?
Well, it's been a huge learning experience. And kind of getting into this, luckily for me, I've always been kind of a hustler. Right out of high school, I started working 2 jobs in college. And then for the next 10 years, I'd work 3 jobs at a time. that's how I operated. I always wanted to work really hard to be able to take care of myself for the future. So with the fishing industry, I very quickly started to realize the importance of building your business, because the best anglers out there, given the changing landscape of our industry, man, you can't, it's really tough to do it just winning tournaments alone. You've got to have the business side. And luckily for me, I've always loved networking. I've always loved communicating with people and building relationships. It's always something I've done really well at. And that's basically the sponsor landscape and social media. It's putting out positive, uplifting content, but it is a full-time job. Especially when you're editing all your own videos, you're getting photos. Luckily, I've got G this year has really helped me get some good photos and stuff, but it's a full-time job on top of being a tournament angler. But that is what I do for a living. So I work really hard at it, and it didn't pay off right away. It was very slow, kind of a slow building process, but I feel like we've last couple of years gained some traction, and here we are.
No,
Full
it,
here.
no, you've had a ton of success, and for those out there that maybe don't know you, you're not just a YouTuber, right? In my opinion, you're a tournament angler versus a competitor, a winner, as proven by the TOC, the toughest championship out there, and at least in kayak fishing. And secondary, you're a content creator. And one of the things that I really appreciate about your content creation, not just your YouTube video, but you take time in Facebook to highlight the goodness in the things that are being done, on the water and off the water within the kayak fishing community. And I think that's important. Yes, I get it. We all love the clickbait. We all love the debates. We all get entertained by stuff that are being said in group chats and all that. But at the same time, that can be overwhelming, and it can bring a lot of negativity on it, and a lot of tribalism and a lot of different opinions. And, with social media now, everybody is kind of like, feels that they can express themselves in a way they wouldn't express themselves in front of anybody else. Kind of like, it's kind of like the double-edged sword. But you've made it a point to highlight good things that happen on the water and still be successful at it. Proven that you don't need to do clickbaits. You don't need to highlight, negative stuff that's going to get a lot of views. You can still focus on good stuff, on good feelings, good vibes, good people, and still have a productive social media following. Did that come to you naturally, or was that an effect that you had watching what was happening in social media within the kayak fishing community?
For me, it really kind of came naturally. I saw how some successful people were doing it, but like you said, there was a lot of the clickbait. There was a lot of the grabby titles and the pictures where women looked really pretty that were getting a lot of attention. And the biggest and most important thing for me, and this has been kind of the backbone of my character for the entirety of my life, is my authenticity and being true to who I am. So, I think that if I could have done things differently and probably got that overnight fame, or had way faster growth. But the way I did it, and, choosing who I worked with and turning down and learning when to say no to certain sponsorships or partnering with certain companies, not making it about money, and putting out content that I like to say, like, content that I could hang my hat on and sleep good at night type of deal, that I knew that this is me putting myself out there, putting my best out there, and doing it my way, more importantly. And did it work at first? No, it was slow, like I said, but it is natural because it's real for me.
And one of the things that I think it's more important that you can't put a monetary value on it is the respect that you get. Everybody in the kayak fishing respects you as an angler, in your personality, in your character buildup. They understand who you are and what you stand for. And I think that says a lot. I think a lot of like content creators to kind of like gripe about not getting the respect within the professional level was, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too, kind of thing. There's certain things that you're gonna do, you're not gonna earn the respect from, the elders in the community or the ones that build the foundation. Especially when talking about kayak fishing, with such a new sport, and we're still in this infancy level, like building the foundation on it. So I really commend you for what you do. I mean, like you said, it's grown in an organic way, and it still shows the value of your character both on and on the water as a tournament angler, and as a person in your personal life. So, and and I would ask you what advice you have to other people, but I mean, I think you said it better than anybody on how you approached it. Moving into now the tournament side of it, you just won the TOC, and one of the things that kind of coincides with your social media is how you kept it real. We all got, I think, a little bit emotional when you got that fish on that last day. I mean, you called your family. I think it was either your father or your grandfather, and he was telling you, hang up and go back to fish. The job's not done. Take me through day 1, day 2, and day 3 without, not focusing on debates, but the emotional impact, of trying to catch 5 fish the first day, trying to catch 5 fish the second day, and finally that fish on the last day. How did that feel? That pressure of catching that last fish?
So, coming into the tournament, it was really strange because I told a lot of the guys I was rooming with, I was like, I'm not, I'm like eerily calm about this tournament. I had a bad practice. I mean, I wasn't betting on myself to even cash a check. I knew I had some fish here and there, but I didn't really know what I had. All I knew is I was going to go out, have a good time, just be thankful to be qualified for this tournament and fishing, especially after having such a tough national championship. So day 1, I ended up getting my limit just like that. And it kind of surprised me a little bit. I didn't have a big limit right off the bat, but I had 5 fish. And as tournament anglers, getting that 5th fish, no matter how big your limit is, quick, is like, okay, now I can go fish and go cold. And that was kind of the story for my day 1 and day 2. After day 1, and kind of I got to learn my area a little bit, I knew that, okay, I've got a limit spot and I've got some fish here. I'm going to go fish new water. And I didn't have really any pressure on myself at all day 1 and day 2. I was very calm, fishing very collected, and just it was like how every angler wants to be going into a huge tournament. I felt zero pressure. And I wish I could harness that and, implement that and just repeat it. And it's I'm going to try to do that next year. But day 3 was different. I only had 4 fish at noon, whereas I had a limit by 8 o'clock the first 2 days. So, and I lost my 5th fish, I think 3 times at noon. And they were all, probably 3-pounders, like 17, 18-inch fish, 18.5-inch fish. I lost 3 good fish. And so I was starting to get a little bit flustered. I went back to the spot. The camera boat was with me pretty much most of day 3. And I said, Shane, I'm going to go back to the spot where, a bass boat actually started back there and beat me to it. So I didn't even get to start there on day 3. And I could have completely flipped out. That bass boat went straight back there, beat me. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's my limit spot. But it ended up being a huge blessing because I just was like, okay, that's fine. I don't care to fish behind him. I'm just going to work my way back there slow, so I'm not fishing right behind him. And I caught an 18 on the first cast, staying back and fishing at just a new stretch of bank. And then I caught a 17.5. And I was just like, huh. Okay. So I caught another big fish and caught a little one back there. And then I went all the way back after, all this had happened, and I went to try to catch another fish. And I told Shane, I was like, there might be these fish are small, but all I need is one. And sure enough, as soon as I got back there, the camera was rolling, and I make my first cast, and I caught that 13.5-incher, which is my 5th fish. And the smallest fish by far in my limit. I think my third smallest, or my second smallest, was like a 16.75. I had a good 4-bag limit going into that. And as you all know, I started crying. The emotions just totally hit me. And I didn't know if that fish, would really amount to anything, but just my whole goal in this tournament was just to get 5 fish each day because I knew the bite was tough for a lot of people. And as any tournament angler, getting 5 is really important. And so when I finally got that, I've never been so happy to see a little 13 and a half inch fish come into my kayak. And it was like the just almost like the entire year's worth of trials that I've been through this year all played out right there. And I was so happy because I was victorious over all of them in that moment, over everything. I got control of my year back, control, and got my fifth fish. And I just all I could do is just pray and give thanks for it. And it was probably I'll never forget that moment, what that felt like.
It really felt like the pressure of the whole season was right there,
It was.
just like an elephant over your shoulders. And it kind of finally, like that release of like, finally, the season is done now. Chips fall where they fall, whether it's first, second, or third. I'm done. I'm
Yep.
done, and I'm proud of what I did, and we'll see what happens. When did you find out you were gonna win? Like from the video, it showed like you really found out right there and then with the announcement. How confident were you that you actually were gonna win that turn? That your name was gonna be the one on the top?
Not at all. I had heard, there's all kinds of this doc talk that goes on after the tournament, and I heard that Jordan Marshall absolutely smashed him and beat Ron by like 10 inches. And, Ron thought when the leaderboard went off, Ron thought he won. And then I think Jordan thought he won when he caught that big last minute cold. And when I heard Marshall caught him really good, I was like, oh, I know I beat Ron with what I had, but I probably didn't beat Marshall. And honestly, I was a little bummed, but to be totally honest with you, even knowing that I was in the top 3 after the season I had and the year I had, I was so happy, so happy. I mean, nothing at that point could have happened to upset me. Getting second, any of that, didn't care. I was so thankful just to be up there in the top 3.
And again, congratulations. I'm sure it felt amazing. This is obviously your biggest win, I would imagine, in your
Yes.
career. Um, when you look back at this year and everything you went through, you and I were talking on the boat ramp at the end of the first day, Saturday, of the Trinity River, and you mentioned how much you wanted to make the top 10 for the KBF, and you looked like a shoo-in. You had a great weekend, and it seems like things at the KBF were clicking. However, things at the Hobie BOS were not. You were really struggling mightily at some point. I say that with respect, because you're a great angler. It really came. I thought, and I was looking at the standings, and I remember thinking, if the tournament before the TOC, and I tried to remember, as I don't want to sound stupid, but was it Pickwick, right? That was the last tournament going into TOC.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking, if Kristine doesn't pull up, like if I remember thinking, if she doesn't get into that top 3, I don't think she gets to the TOC. And I wasn't sure, like I'm not a big math guy, but I was thinking, man, I think she needs a top 3 finish to, otherwise she may not even make the Hobie TOC. And I'm thinking, how crazy could this be that she doesn't make the Hobie TOC? Tell me, going into Pickwick, did you had to be on the top 3 to actually qualify, or were you already kind of like
I was
there?
already in pretty. So even though I didn't have a great year in the Hobie, I had a 6th at Susquehanna, I had a 15th, and I had an 18th. So I still had pretty good finishes, but only one top 10. I was sitting in I think I was sitting in 20th in the AOI points, and that's before all of the roll downs. So I was pretty safe going into Pickwick. I had a good enough year where they took the top 20 in AOI, and like 12 of those people already rolled down. So it was at like 32. So the top 32 would go. I was in 20th going into Pickwick, and I felt pretty dang safe. But still, I wasn't happy with my year in the Hobie tournament. It was my worst, even though I cashed a good check at Susquehanna and I had some top 20s. For me, it just wasn't my normal year. I had a lot of stuff kind of going on that I was struggling with the Hobie series, but it took me most all of the year to finally pull it together and fish like I know I'm capable of. But yeah, I definitely would not have been in contention for Angler of the Year had I not taken second at Pickwick.
Did you really felt that the pressure that you needed to at least get yourself in a good spot going into the
Yes. Oh,
TOC,
yeah.
both
Absolutely.
mentally because at that point, like the hopes of landing on the top 10 and the KBF were like fading, right? So it's kind of like it's that roller coaster of emotions you go through the whole season where the highs are highs and the lows can be lows. Now the tournament is almost ending. And like we were talking about, that pressure of that last fish, the last fish on the last day of the TOC, how everything came, the emotions. How was it for you going into, going to the TLC, knowing that the KBF top 10 wasn't probably a realistic option at that point? The national championship, but wasn't the result that you wanted. How are you mentally, emotionally going into the TLC? Did you feel comfortable saying like, I can get this, or you feel like, man, things are kind of like not working out for me? Were you getting down on yourself at any point?
It's really odd. My one goal this year was to really make the 10. And going into the national championship, yeah, I had a great chance of doing that. I was in 11th going in. So super, all I could do was just not, and I did. But, my boyfriend and my other half won the national championship.
Mm,
So though I was internally, it was so hard on me falling short of a goal. My boyfriend got first. One of my very good friends got second, and the entire top, the stage was full of people that I absolutely love and admire. And I'm one of those people like it's hard for me to stay upset when so many people that I love are doing so good. And I left the national championship feeling if you were there and you witnessed, the testimonies on stage and all of the positivity and the good
mm,
from that tournament and how those guys, I was so proud of them. Um, it almost felt like, okay, this season, even though I didn't end it how I wanted to, the person I love more than anything made the biggest career move of his life. And so many of my people did well. It was like the season can end right now. And it felt like it did. I was like, I'm happy with how it is. It was an exhausting year. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Going into the TOC, I was kind of just like, I mean, it's so late in the season. It was just after this huge national championship, very
mm.
emotional roller coaster. I was kind of just, I wasn't checked out, but I wasn't all ramped up going into it, if that makes sense. And it's almost kind of like embarrassing to say that because I didn't feel like I was, giving it my full attention and getting all excited. And it was hard for me to find that motivation going into the TOC after everything at the national championship.
Kind of that brings me to a curious question. Now I've heard this. I'm a huge sports guy. I love sports. I remember Kobe Bryant used to say that when he was sick, that actually when he had like the flu or something, he played better because it kind of forced him to like, okay, I have to calm down a little bit. I have to, amp that down a little bit because it's not. Did that sentiment actually help you knowing like, okay, I'm not checked out, but I'm okay with whatever happens. I'm good. I'm satisfied with my year. Did that actually help you win the tournament? Not thinking, oh, I gotta win this, man. I hope I win this. I'm pressuring myself. Do you think that played a part into it?
Oh, absolutely. Because going into the national championship, I had a phenomenal practice. Like I was on winning fish, just like a lot. I mean, I had 100-inch limits easily in the national championship. So knowing that I'm on these incredible fish and I'm right there, I'm going to make the 10. Day one, the nerves and the pressure got to me, and I just completely, and I've done a lot better about that this year, but this one got to me because I wanted it so bad and I fished terrible. I had a small limit. Luckily, I was able to completely scrap it together and still cash a check at the national championship. But my shot at the 10 was gone from that one day. And with the TOC, I was fishing like I had nothing to lose, and I was just happy to be there. I was going to go out and go fishing, and I fished so good. I fished methodically. I fished. My casting was perfect. I made good decisions. My mind was clear. My head was clear. And when you have all of those things, it's going to be reflected in your fishing. It's so much right between the eyes.
Yeah, that's a good point because I think mental aspect on this sport is it's I hate to put numbers, but like it's I don't know 90% of the battle, whatever it is. we talk about kayak fishing, and you've proven you're a great angler. This is yet it is a male dominated sport, but being the fastest, being the strongest, really is not going to translate into catching fishing. What's going to translate is your knowledge and the wisdom to apply that knowledge, and how work yourself mentally. And I've talked to anglers that I've been on tournaments, that I had a good friend in the Bass Nation Kayak Series in Lake Fork that was telling me, halfway through my day, I just snapped my rods and just went to the car and got into fetal position and cried. Because there's a lot, and it's hard. It was like, it works. I mean, it really works on your psychic. So it goes to show a strong psychic and a good mental aspect of it takes you a long way to having success more than anything. And obviously you found that edge. You not only found success in kayak fishing, you did boat tournaments. You actually did a Sea-Doo tournament, correct?
Yeah.
And did you won? Actually, you won the tournament, right?
I got second.
Second.
Second out of all these local. I mean, it was so cool.
That speaks a lot, I think, as well-rounded as you are. You did very good at as the co-angler in some of the, was it BFL or Bass Nation?
That's the Bassmaster Opens.
Bassmasters.
I fished 2 of those and cashed checks in both of those too.
What has been your favorite fishing? I'm sure you're gonna say kayak fishing, but how does, let's say, Sea-Doo fishing rank among kayak fishing and bass boat fishing?
Yes, kayak fishing is always gonna be my favorite. Fishing from the Sea-Doo was so unique, and it was so fun. That was one of the most incredible experiences I had. Is it conducive to bass fishing? Probably not a whole lot. When you're trying, I'm a shallow water power fisherman, and with the Sea-Doo, if you watch my YouTube video, I'm having to, a lot of the times I cast and I have to adjust and reel and stop and turn it so it doesn't keep, because it's always moving.
Yeah.
So it's always going this way or that way. But being able to run around on, infamous Lake Powell, one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. And, I had one rod at the spinnerbait and I went all over it. I probably covered like 30 miles on that little Sea-Doo, and it was an absolutely incredible experience. And I would definitely do that again. I would definitely fish a Sea-Doo tournament again.
I actually saw in Lake Louisville a guy with a Sea-Doo, and he actually had, I don't know how he did it because I saw him from afar. He had a motor guide, Bow Mountain trolling motor on it with the GPS and everything.
That's insane.
I was like, how does he do that? That seemed like a good marriage right there, because now you can fish on shallow waters with that and stay your course. Now that you're looking back at this season, you've had kind of like the disappointments of the KBF, and now the consolation prize, best consolation prize we can think of, right? The TLC winner. How satisfied or disappointed or hungry are you going into next season?
I'm definitely sad. I wouldn't say satisfied. I'm just thankful. I'm so grateful. Maybe not really because of the tournament wins, but more so because of the support that I have in the entire industry. I'm reminded all the time. You mentioned earlier that a lot of people respect me, and I see that all the time, and that's all I've wanted getting into this thing. And I've got guys that fish the Elite Series, that fish MLF, major brands in the industry that support me and reach out to me and want me to succeed. And of course, all of my friends in the kayak fishing world, my family. I'm just so thankful. That's really the only emotion I have right now, even going into next year, is I'm just thankful that I get to do this for a living, and I get to, make a living out of this little plastic boat. And I've met the most incredible people and in the industry, and hungry for next year. Yeah, I want to win an Angler of the Year title. That's a goal of mine. I want to fish more of the Bassmaster Opens. But right now I'm just kind of taking it one day at a time and just relishing in it and just being grateful.
You've earned it, and you sure earned the rest of the off season. I kind of wanted to ask you about we talked a little bit about this in the pre-recording, going to this offseason compared to last year's offseason. Last year's offseason, midway through the year, you seemed riding high, both in your personal life and in tournament. You were doing solid, as you always do, consistent. Things kind of took a left turn, both professional relationships and personal relationships in different aspects. Dynamics change in a way that we never like to see them change. Did that affect you at any point mentally? Did the struggles of that translate at any point in your tournaments, or did you feel like it made you stronger, more focused to now just kind of focus on fishing, just get all that outside noise out of you?
I think a little bit of both. Last year was such a tough year for me at the end. Going through a really hard breakup. With a fiance that I'd been with for a long time and that I cared about. That was devastating and really, really tough for me. It definitely probably did affect my at least a little bit of my fall with my fishing. I actually took some time off and just kind of tried to recenter and regroup. Luckily, like I said, I had a great support system and people that helped me get back and just kind of the way that I've always done things. I've had a lot on any route to be successful. We've got mountains we got to climb, and the best thing you can do when this stuff and this heartache faces you is you have to get back out there and just keep moving. And I think in that regard, fishing is such a great outlet for a lot of us, whether we're going through losing a job or losing a loved one or going through a divorce or a breakup. Fishing or an addiction or PTSD. Fishing is so therapeutic and it's so healing. And I think I did kind of pour into my fishing during that time. My next tournament after that breakup didn't go so good. And it probably did affect me a little bit. However, I was that next month, I had a little bit of time off. I went out and just musky fish, hung out with good friends, just kind of found myself again. And then the TOC, again, kind of the same thing as this year, zero expectations. I only had a day and a half to practice. And I went out there and it was like God kind of gave me a little bit of a sign, like, hey, keep going. I got you, I've got you. And getting third in that was just like another metaphorical victory over the heartbreak that I kind of went through. So yeah, I think pouring into fishing once again, as many of us do, was a lifesaver.
It definitely is, and I know a lot. I've had a lot of special guests on my show, like so many of them that have gone through that, PTSD and how kayak fishing has helped, and it speaks to the greatness of our sport in the community too. You seem to be one of those persons that really enjoys or embraces having a good support group. It shows in your social media, how you called your father and your grandfather, in your friends. We know you recently had your birthday and there was a bunch of people going, and it seemed like you had a great time. How important is it for you to have that support group going forward to your next goals?
Huge. I'm very independent and I know that I can do a lot of things on my own. I'm a survivor, I'm a fighter, but I also recognize that I'm nothing without the people that love me and support me. And I'm so fortunate for that. I think about all the people that don't have, a loving, supportive family, or they don't have the friends that I have. And it just reminds me every single day of how thankful and how grateful I am for the people in my life. I mean, I feel like I'm one of the luckiest people on the planet for the amount of people that love me and support me and just, want to see me succeed. And there's definitely people out there who don't. I'm very well
No.
aware of that. When you're successful, there's going to be a handful of people that are waiting for you to fall on your face. But the people that love and support me far outweigh that. And I think that's there's been a couple of times, even this year, where I was like, man, some of this stuff is too much. Why am I even kayak fishing? I'm just going to get off social media. And the people in my support system help me get through that and say, hey, no, this sport needs you. You're not going anywhere and we got you. And so and in a lot of regard, I owe that to them, to all of my friends and family. And I definitely owe that to them.
And it speaks to your character as a person, right? Because those types of relationship and that type of backup from friends doesn't just fall out of the sky. It's there
No,
because they see who you are, they recognize your character, and they want to be there for you. Your personality invites them to say, hey, you know what, I want to back support Kristine. I want her to succeed. And that speaks to you as a person, on and off the water. We see how, I remember one of my favorite stories was talking to Jody Quinn with when we were at the Trinity River, right? So he caught that 11 pounder and he immediately called you. Now, you keep in mind, you're still in the running. Matthew Scott had 100 inches in the first hour. Jody Quinn 109 inches. You were right there. Guillermo, comeback kid, like seeing like no lead is safe when he's on the water, and you took time to go from wherever you were to go help Jody to weigh that fish, because it was important to him with, money riding on the line. So it kind of speaks out to that camaraderie where you're like, I know I'm fishing for money, but there is connections with people. So it's like a great human being as Jody Quinn, one of the greats in our sports, that you're willing to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to stop fishing to help you out. Even if it's something so tribal as to say, I want to see how much it weighs. And he didn't have a weight scale, so you went to be. So I think that speaks a lot. Those connections is what earns you, that support group that you've had. Going into this off season, now that we're going to start this off season, compared to what last year's off season, obviously there's some glaring differences, but for you, how does it feel for you going into this off season, knowing the success and silver linings on what happened? So some things that happened seemed like negatively, but now have turned into a positive in your personal life. Mm-hmm. How does that feel for you now, just going into next season?
It's just the truth is that, when we're in the midst of these trials and this heartache for in my case, we can't see that, things really do happen for a reason. And it's so hard to grasp that and put trust into the greater plan. And it's one of the most beautiful moments in life is when we kind of have that like, okay, now I understand. And the end of this year was a big aha moment for me, because I know that without a shadow of doubt, and it's probably the only time I could ever say this, that I am right where I'm supposed to be in every single aspect of my life. And that's a pretty, monumental statement, and especially being just so shortly removed from some really tough stuff. But it all happens for a reason. It was necessary for the growth, for the perspective. And, going back, I probably wouldn't change it, because I wouldn't be where I am now and with, who I'm with right now. Yeah. And I just feel so much peace. And just, again, I'm going to go back to that reoccurring theme of gratitude, just for everything. I definitely couldn't say this at this time last year, or even the preceding years before that. So it's just a testament that when you're going through something that is just seemingly impossible to get through, and you're at your rock bottom and the pits of despair, get back up. There is a light. Keep pushing, and things will, it's never about our timing, and things will get out and turn better for you. You just have to get back up and keep pushing forward, and just put faith in that it's all going to work out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, it's not always easy, but there's always a silver lining. There's always something better ahead. And I know this podcast, obviously, it's going to be centered about you, but talking a little bit about your relationship. I mean, you're with Gio is one of the most beloved and respected anglers in the kayak fishing community. I mean, I've met him just a couple of times, and I already fall in love with this guy. He's such a nice guy, such a gentleman on and off the water. When I look at you before even that, like even the beginning of this year, before you got into a relationship, one of the things that I noticed about independently, each one of you, is that your progression, you both on your side and on his side, you were kind of like those that are, hanging out in the top 10, but not the Jody Quinns or Russ Snyders. And gradually we've seen Gio just elevate his game to a level when I was actually asking Jody Quinn, does Gio have an it factor? Kind of like... Again, like Tom Brady in sports or Michael Jordan in basketball. When you see him go like from 110 at the last minute, the TOC, putting 300 100 inches, like 100 inches every day. And then we see your progression as well, being consistent, now not just hovering in the top 10 in the world, but actually making a mark and inching along to like, I'm in the top now. How does that, how did that come about? Is it just as simple as putting time over the water, or were other external factors that have elevated you, the game, to now being at the top of the sport?
So I think, you maybe kind of lightly touched on it. A big part of, I think, both Guillermo and I's success this year is that, for the first time, we had each other's support in an incredible way. When you're with that person, like your best friend, and you're cheering for them and rooting them on and encouraging them, ahead of yourself, it like, I don't know, for me, just having his support throughout the year and was just huge for my success. And I think I was able to do the same thing for him. Not to take away from just the natural ability and talent that boy has. He's probably one of the best anglers out there. I mean, like you said, he and I have always been very consistent. We're good anglers, have a lot of tournament wins and top 10s and top 5s under our belt. But this year was definitely our best years. And I think a lot of it is because we were able to kind of find that mutual, just that good space, and have a good head game, and we're happy and our minds are clear and we got each other's back. And it's just kind of a beautiful thing when you're kind of in this with your best friend,
How does that translate? Because I know a lot of people, and I don't agree with it, and let me, nip this in the bud. A lot of people, I'm sure, are going to say, well, that share information. I've seen your videos, and I've seen where I fished in the same waters, in the same lakes on tournaments that you fish and that you fish. And I've never seen you both fish the same area. Maybe you do, but I've never seen it. I know for a fact when you fish on your tournaments, on your video, it's clear that you're by yourself. Now, this is you. How does that dynamic, compare, because at one point you want to win. It's great for your career and your social media. So is there any point where you're like, I'm not sharing this secret, this stays with me? Or from the other side, it's just like, no, I'm keeping this information to myself. Does that dynamic ever play out in the relationship for you?
Maybe like every now and then it might a little bit. I'm sure he keeps a few things from me, but when it all kind of boils down to it, he and I, we fish so differently. And again, we're usually, what's really funny is like the Pickwick tournament. The first thing that popped in my head was, oh great, here's G and Scotch and I. Everyone's gonna think we're fishing the same stuff. When it's like, thank goodness, like I said, I record all my videos so people see that I go to where nobody is. I fish by myself. I want to find my own fish, do my own thing, and I like finding those areas that people kind of overlook. But I mean, I was fishing big smallmouth up by the dam. Matt Scotch was in the dead center of the lake on the stuff that I actually won on last year. And then G was like as far south as you could possibly be. So we couldn't have been, the three of us could not have been further apart. But that definitely does always have to cross my mind. I'm just like, but that's the thing. People see where I fish, where he fishes. We're fishing different ways and doing different things. Do we tell each other how our day's been going? Absolutely. Yeah, because he's my best friend. I tell him everything. Do I sometimes keep a little tidbit to myself? I may have done that a few times this year, and I know he's done it too. Because I mean, at the end of the day, we still like to compete and see who's going to be better. And I'll say it here. I won't tell him, but he's a way better angler than me. Like, I'm pretty good, but G is like a fishing god. He's phenomenal. He's like, I would say G and Cody and Russ and Jody are on a entirely different level than anybody. I mean, I'll put myself up there in the top, probably top 20 of this sport, along with a ton of other well-deserving people. Those four, different level.
No, definitely. And kind of spoiled my next questions. My next question is obviously going to be one-on-one for all the marbles. Who's going to win, Gio or Kristine?
Now, okay, if you can put me on moving water for smallmouth, I got him. I'm a better fisherman when it comes to river fishing, and I will take that to my grave. I'm a better smallmouth bass fisherman on moving water. About anywhere else, probably.
So it all depends if we have home court advantage or not, right? And so that's interesting. But
I've never beat him in Texas. Ever.
And I wanted to clarify this because I wanted to point out this question. So I want no doubt should be said. Like I have a lot of respect for you. Do I have a ton of respect also as well for Gio. I've kind of talked to Gio a little bit more, and I know what you both are about. And I wanted to clarify that because I know there's going to be obviously people are going to say, oh, no, they don't. And I've seen it on the water. No, you guys don't. You can see the videos. Anybody that thinks that way, you're wrong, and you should watch the videos. And you should be on the water and ask people that are actually on the water competing. And you'll find out that's not the case. And I don't think anything should be taken away from you or Gio. Or even Matt Scott, because I know Matt Scott's a great friend. And also a great angler. Matt Scott has done amazing this year.
Scott is phenomenal.
And he fished Lake Worth on that tournament. So that he came up, I think, fourth. He got, or third. He had 100 inches. So it wasn't even the same lake that you all fish. So props to him, and congratulations to Matt also having a great season. Before I let you go, Kristine, and I know I've had you almost for an hour, but I have some kind of like rapid questions I wanted to go over real quickly. You can only fish once, and I know the answer, but I know there's people out there that don't know you that well, may be hearing you for the first time. I know you love muskie. I know you love smallmouth bass. I know you love largemouth bass. When it comes to fun fishing, not tournaments, muskie, largemouth, or smallmouth, which one?
You know the answer. What is it?
Smallmouth?
Muskie.
Muskie? Really?
Hands down. Yep.
I really thought you were going to say, and now you're right, well, looking back at you.
Smallmouth has got dangerously close.
Yeah.
Dangerously close. And I will admit, this year I had the choice to do muskie or smallmouth, and I did do smallmouth. But 9 times out of 10, it's going to be muskie.
I really thought smallmouth because I know you mentioned one of the videos says you know how much smallmouths tug at my string hard. So I really thought like okay, smallmouth took over.
Smallmouth. It's still muskie though. Barely.
Muskie. Awesome. Too bad there's not that many muskie tournaments though. That would be a hard tournament. It's only would be a hard tournament. Favorite body of water fishing? Well, you kind of mentioned the river thing, but like specific, like a lake or river that you really like. Which one?
I've grown really, really fond of the Susquehanna River. Really, really love the Susquehanna. I love the James River. I'll say 4. Say Susquehanna, the James. I'm just gonna say the Boulder Junction, Wisconsin area, all those little lakes up there, and then Lake Sinclair. Nice.
That order. So Susquehanna first.
No, they're kind of like an all weird equal tie.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Favorite bait?
Buzzbait.
Buzzbait. Nice. Fondest memory of fishing. Doesn't have to be a tournament. Doesn't have to be the TOC. In fact, we'll exclude the TOC. Other than the TOC, what's been your fondest memory out there fishing?
To be totally honest, probably growing up and fishing the banks of the Weeping Water Lake with my grandpa and my little brother every single Sunday that we were home.
Most forgettable day out on the water. Day that just like, I wish I would have never gone fishing this day.
Oh gosh. Let's see. It's hard for me to find a day I wish I never went fishing. I got it. Last year, I drug my poor friend Jordan Westerman up to northern Wisconsin, January 1st. It was negative 21 degrees out, and we decided to camp out on the ice and go ice fishing. And I didn't have a snowmobile, so we drug all the gear about 3/4 of a mile in 3 foot of snow.
Oh my God!
3 trips, and set the camp up. Didn't catch a single thing. We froze. We had the heater going. We ran out of propane. It was an absolutely miserable trip. Miserable. And he still to this day probably won't let me live that down, that I made him go do that. But I wish that's one day I can say, I wish I just probably wouldn't have done that.
Awesome. Going into next season, you mentioned it, Angler of the Year. What's on the perfect season? Well, obviously, perfect season was winning Angler of the Year on all 3 tournaments and the championship on all 3 tournaments. But realistical goals for you, top 10. Would that be safe to say that's your main goal next year? KBF top 10.
Yep. I'd really like to win an Angler of the Year title. That's really one of the one things I haven't done yet was win an Angler of the Year on one of the big national trails. Um, and yeah, qualifying for the 10. I mean, for me, I feel like it's pretty. I've made the TOC every single year fairly easily because of the I'm able to fish so many of the tournaments, and I'm fairly consistent. So that's kind of a loose goal, but my big goals are to make the 10 and to win an Angler of the Year title. I think that'd be pretty phenomenal.
Well, we wish you the best on all tournaments and all success. I wanted to ask you real quickly before I let you go. We saw the bass schedule changes. I respect that Bass Nation Kayak Series is trying. They're trying. They're trying to listen. I feel there's still ways to go, and for the life of me, I can't understand why we're not there. But that's my opinion. What do you feel Bass Nation has to do for it to take to the next level? And again, we're not criticizing, we're not batching on anybody. Certainly not Dwayne Wally, who's done a great job. But what do you think should Bass Nation could do to make this better for them? What would you like to?
The best thing they could do is to have an action. When Steve Owens was there working with them, if they could have kept Steve Owens on and let him have some control and decision making, would have been the best thing. They've got to have someone that a kayak angler that is very familiar with running tournaments and knows how our system works. I think if they were to get somebody like that and let that person have control, that would be huge. I don't know if they're ever going to do that. They seem to keep things pretty much in-house and close to the chest, and it's not going very well. But there is room to improve, and I think they are going to continue to try. But I'd like to see them get somebody like they had Steve or Tyler Cole and allow them to have a little more reins.
I agree. I think that's going to be a big part moving forward. And again, we want them to succeed. I think it's important for the growth of the sport if they get involved and they have success. Kristine, I've had you for almost an hour, and I am super grateful for honoring the podcast. You've done so many podcasts, and you have some well-earned rest. Before I let you go, I want to give you a chance to give shout-outs, sponsorships, anybody you want to give thanks to or shout-out. Please take your time.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on.
My pleasure.
It's been an awesome conversation. I love your podcast. You always do a good job.
Thank you.
Guillermo and Matt in the room adore you as well. So thank you for representing Texas well.
You make me blush here now.
Yeah. And I think I already said, thank you to the people that support me and follow me and lift me up. That's huge. My family, my friends, all of my sponsors. I've got some incredible ones that I partner with, and just everybody in the industry. Like I said, it's can't do this alone. I definitely can't do it alone, and I'm eternally grateful for everybody.
Well, Kristine, thank you again so much for taking the time and again honoring the podcast. We wish you the best of success, both on the water and off the water, in your personal life, in your social media content, in your YouTube videos. I think the work that you are doing and how it translates to the growth of the sport is very important. And I think the kayak fishing community is a better place because of persons like you, Gio, Matt, Jody, and a host of other people that too many to mention. So thank you for what you do for growing the sport and for all your hard work and putting great content out there that's actually useful, entertaining, and professional. So with that said, we would like to thank all the listeners. I hope you had a great end of the year, and I hope everything that you're putting forward for everyone out there listening for this year, I hope it comes through. New Year's resolutions, work on them. If you're going to be out on the water, please wear your PFDs. Have a good day, everyone, and peace out.